So did you start here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
This was the way it's always been. Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually have like little tabletop ones, but they don't go that low. Oh. So I figure for you, I'd have to bring something a little lower.
I need a booster.
I'm going to try to MacGyver something with these couches here. And we'll have like, people just hang out on couches. And
so it's a little more.
Yeah. I've seen ones where they wear like the headsets, but I don't like the way they sound.
No.
I still like the way these things sound.
Yeah, that would be a little more. Well, anytime you would move or shuffle, you'd think it would.
That's a good point too. You probably hear like the couch all creaky and.
See, and then you can do that ASMR. You know?
That shit creeps me out.
It's Sham's like, oh, it worked on me. I'm like, no, it fucking didn't. I'm like, you're full of shit. Oh, and they do the weirdest. They like have Q-tips and things, and oh, it's weird. I'm like, I can't.
It reminds me of like people with crystals and stuff, you know? It's like if your wrist is sore, it's like, oh, just take this little thing of quartz and just rub it on there.
Yeah.
It's all better now.
Yeah. The moon is full. Set your rocks out to refill. I'm like, okay, hey, but here's the thing. You're not hurting anyone. If you want to set your rocks out to refill in the moon,
go for it.
Please.
Who am I to say, right?
By all means.
Well, I guess we'll get started here. So today in studio / living room, we've got HAYLEY Eaglesham. Am I saying it right?
Eaglesham.
Yeah. I should have asked you ahead of time. That's my bad.
Okay.
I wanted to call you HAYLEY G.
Yeah, that works.
Old school style.
Yeah.
But we originally were going to do this in March, which was Brain Injury Awareness Month. But of course, there's this thing that came up. Minor thing. And I was worried about pushing it back to June because we might not have anything to talk about.
I know your notes got longer.
Like every day something happened. I'm like, you know what? I want to hear what HAYLEY has to say about this. Yeah. Well, welcome.
Hello.
Is that your homemade coffee? Mm-hmm. You were pretty upset that I didn't want coffee.
I know. It's McCafe and it's just delightful.
I can do like one in the morning and that's it. If I have a second one, it puts me to sleep. Oh, wow. So like tonight I'll have coffee. Yeah. But like I can't during the day because I'll be sleeping.
Well, we've got 2 kids and 2 puppies plus our 2 dogs. So to say that I'm up in the night would be an understatement.
Sleep? What sleep? Yeah. Well, yeah, like you texted last night of like, yeah, I think I'm ready to go at like 1 a.m. I'm like, yeah, what the
I know.
hell?
And I'm like, why aren't people responding? Oh, right. It's 1 a.m.
1 a.m. Yeah,
it's 1 a.m. I love that you still kept your Lord of the Rings poster.
Of course, it's everywhere. Yeah, I have this up here. I've got my Lord of the Rings tats, which I'm getting finished up.
Nice.
I got some Lord of the Rings stuff downstairs. Well, some may say I'm obsessed. But
we named our son Thorin after Thorin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I didn't want people to nickname him Thor, so we just...
Smart.
Yeah, we just kind of...
But I mean, he would be named then after Chris Hemsworth, who is another very pretty person.
Or Sham's hero, Thor Bjornsson from Game of Thrones.
I tried watching Game of Thrones. I couldn't do it.
Okay, so you don't drink coffee and you don't watch Game of Thrones.
I know. You're out of here? All right, thanks for coming.
Yeah, see you later.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is a little bit about you and just the whole experience. And I'll let you kind of go through it and kind of guide just how everything kind of happened and just how it changed and impacted you.
Sure. So it was 2006. It was a year after I graduated. So I was 19 and a girlfriend and I were going to the senior Wildcats game, as you did.
As one does.
As a 19-year-old in Warman.
Yep.
Not a long list of things to do on a Friday night. So some of my closest friends were actually at the monster trucks that night. So I wasn't with my normal crew.
Okay.
So yeah, we were just sitting up in the stands, kind of left of the players' benches. And if you are familiar with the Warman Arena, you kind of know.
Repped and played, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, you know. So we were playing the Shellbrook Elks, I'll never forget. And we were shorthanded. The Shellbrook Elks were shorthanded. So he came around the back of the net and took a slap shot to ice the puck, as you do when you're shorthanded. And I saw the whole thing. I saw the whole thing.
And you still remember?
Totally. And I was completely sober, so I wasn't like... I'm a hockey fan, so I was watching the game.
Of course, yeah.
And the puck came over the glass through both players' benches and up into the stands. And it was lights out. I don't remember what happened or really being hit. All of a sudden, I'm kind of opening my eyes and I can hear someone say, call an ambulance, call 911. And I remember thinking, for who? For what?
What I missed?
Yeah, and Rob Keep and Jade Ethier, they're in my face, like, you know, are you okay? You were hit, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I think I remember feeling like, nah, this is fine. Like, just help me up and
walk it off.
Yeah. And it became apparent quite quickly that I was not able to walk. They took me back into the Zamboni room, and immediately I started displaying like combativeness, like flailing my arms, pushing people away, swearing, really vulgar. Sorry to everyone that I told to F off, but like sensitivity to light and sound, classic signs.
Concussion, this concussion.
Of a brain injury. Yeah. And thank God the Warman first responders were there, because they knew right away, like, she's got a brain injury. The ambulance was already on the way. So
how far did you go down? Because like those steps / benches were like, there was no stairs, right? If I remember, it's been a while since I've been there.
Yeah. So old school rink, wooden bleachers.
Yeah.
So I would guess they're probably 2.5 feet each, and I was on the very top.
So like 10 feet.
Yeah. And I hit the boards and then the cement, from what I've been told.
Right.
And so, hit the boards, hit the cement. It was bad. And immediately had crazy pain in my head. So I knew it was bad, but it was like, you know, call my parents, tell them I have another concussion, tell them to stay at their party. They were at a birthday party in the city. And I'm like, don't bother them. Tell them to stay. It's nothing serious. My records that I went over yesterday said the ambulance made it from the Warman Arena to RUH in 8 minutes.
Wow.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So want me to keep going with
so
this,
once you got to the
story?
I was going to say, like, once you kind of got to the hospital, were you still conscious, or were you
in and out?
And then in that part, you still remember as well?
It's hard. It's hard. And so it's been so long since this happened. The lines become blurry of what I remember and what I've been told.
Right.
So what I've been told has become my memory of
It's like that, what do they call it? That, not gaslighting. What's the term? The
like
Mandela effect?
Yeah. So I was in and out of consciousness, and I remember they kept asking me, like, how much did you have to drink? Like, are you on any drugs? And I'm like, F no, just, you know, give me some meds.
Yeah.
And my poor Christian dad was like, oh my gosh, she's just swearing, she's out of control. You
That's
know,
what he's concerned about.
Yeah, well, and we didn't know at the time, right? And thank God they came, because so at the CT scan, my brain was swelling. So you can imagine, like, there's pressure on my brain, and I'm getting swearier and more hostile by the minute.
It's changing your entire personality.
Totally. Yeah. Like, unrecognizable. And so I was like, I'm going to barf. Get me out of this CT tube. Like, I'm going to puke. And they're like, you have to lay still. You have to lay still. And I barfed all over the CT machine, and I sat up and flipped the nurses the double birds.
What I just tell you.
Yeah. I'm like, see what I'm trying to tell you. So CT scan showed, I have to look at my notes, because it's.
Well, you were mentioning about, like, you know, another concussion, and I have to bring up the story of our first Warp Tour together.
Yeah.
So it was one of the first times I ever met your parents. Probably the first time. I know I hadn't met your dad yet, but I think I've met your mom a couple of times from school and whatever. And I remember the whole part of it was, don't worry, I'll take care of her. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
And we got to Warp Tour, and from here is in Calgary. So it was a 6-hour drive, stay in the car, and like 4 bands in, maybe. I think it was Story of the Year.
Oh, God.
Was the Story of the Year?
Well, I probably blacked out during Story of the Year.
You decided, of course, being the smallest girl there, that I should go in the front. I need to be front row for, let's say it was Story of the Year.
Yeah.
And I lost you and didn't know where you were. That's fine. Well, we all had our little meeting places and stuff. And I was with Cody Kenway.
Yeah.
Shout out to Cody if you're listening.
How about shout out to my mom for letting me go with 2 guys in grade 12 when I was in grade 8.
Yeah, now that you mention it, we're going to take this girl, 2 guys and a girl in a Ford or Chev Cavalier
to a punk rock concert
in
Calgary.
Overnight.
Yeah, in Calgary. I was like, Mom, it was fine. Cody slept in the bathtub. It was good.
And I lose you for a while, and then I find you at the medical tent, and your ribs, you'd cracked a ribs, or you popped a rib or something.
Yeah, it was bad. I was having trouble breathing. It was hot.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
It was one of those things that and you know, not to get too much into it, but I remember, like, it was when I brought you back home, I almost wanted to like push you out of the car and just
ring
speed
the doorbell,
away and let's
drive
go
away.
Yeah, because like I had one job. It was just like to not get you hurt. And apparently you're used to getting hurt. So, you know, I was toughening you up for later stuff.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you finally
true.
made it to the CT. You threw up all over the place. They're going to charge you a lot of money to clean that now. The nurses don't like you anymore.
No.
But now you're stable.
No, so getting worse by the minute. And so they called in my doctor off the street. So he was on call. And I remember from my own memory leaning over in the hospital bed and seeing this guy in his blue jeans and his like Nike shoes. And I'm like, I hope this guy was like having a nice, good sleep because he's about to operate on my brain. So they diagnosed me with an acute subdural hematoma, which is a fancy term from what I understand for a major hemorrhage in the brain. And they also, once they got in there, they found a large linear skull fracture, which means the bone was crushed and pushing into the brain.
So it was adding even more pressure.
Yeah, so super serious. And there was like loose bone fragments that they had to suction out and cauterize a bunch of bleeding from the vessels off the two main arteries from what
And this
I
is crazy because just to go back to the beginning, I'm fine. Leave me alone. It's not going to be a big deal we now need to have major brain surgery.
Yeah. Like my mom's like, well, what happens if you don't operate? And they said, she'll die in an hour. So this is really scary because at the arena, I was like, you guys just take me home. Like, I'm fine.
Like what if, right?
My parents weren't home. Like they were out all night. If they would have brought me home. So thank God the paramedics were there and they recognized, no, she's telling us one thing, but we can tell she's not good. And I don't know if you know Liam Neeson, of course, the actor. His wife, same thing, brain injury. You've got this grace period where you're talking and coherent. And she said, I don't need medical attention. I'm fine. Well, and we all know what happened to his wife. So thank God I was in the right place.
It's like that, whoever's seen Grey's Anatomy 1,000 times, there's that one where McDreamy dies and it's the surge. It's like where all of a sudden he feels fine.
Yes.
And they're like, they don't know why. There still isn't a medical reason why. But yeah, it's like the thing of if he's feeling that good, there's something wrong.
Yeah,
that's kind of probably
exactly
where you
right.
are, right?
And you want to talk Grey's Anatomy, they did my surgery on Grey's Anatomy in like season 4.
As in like, okay, like the same one.
Yeah, the same procedure.
That's pretty cool.
It is very cool. Yeah.
Do you tell your friends that it was because of you?
Yeah, it was inspired by me.
I would say that.
Yeah.
Who's going to check that?
I know.
I wouldn't check that.
No one fact checks. No, I know. I saw it on Facebook. It's true.
It's got to be true, right?
Yeah. So.
Well, I remember also, I was working at the Odeon at the time. It was still called the Odeon then. And I got a call or a text from Sam. And I texted him back because he's like, hey, Haley's in the hospital. We need to go get her. Can you come pick me up? Because I don't think Sam could drive at the time or something. I was like, yeah, no problem. But of course, this is back in the days of T9. So I'm trying to text back like Morse code, like I'll be...
Hit the button 4 times for S.
Right there. And it's just like, it's causing more and more time. And then we got to the hospital and I met your parents in the waiting room. And I knew there wasn't much I could do then in the sense of like asking a bunch of questions because they've probably heard them all already. And I just figured, okay, I'm just going to talk about nothing and try to get your mom to like
stop fainting and barfing,
come off the ledge. And I think it worked out pretty good. It wasn't bad. And then, we went and saw you in the room and it was really eerie. And to bring up Grey's Anatomy again, when you see those shows and it's so frantic and there's so much noise and there's so much energy, I just remember it being so quiet.
So was this when you came?
Yep.
What you're talking about right now, was that post-surgery?
Yes.
Or pre?
It was we saw you because you were all wrapped up still.
Okay.
Like your head looked like a big turban thing. Well, that's not bad to say, but like by the time we got there, like everything had kind of quote unquote calmed down. But that was the most eerie part. It's going to the room and it was dead silent. Like I was expecting like machine noises or whatever, and it was just like, can we come
So that would have been at like midnight or 1
Yeah, because I was working. I would have been at the Odeon normally till like 2. So I was there ready to go, and we came and saw you. But it was like that was one of the things I remember the most of like just such a small thing, but like how quiet and eerie it was. So once you got out of surgery, how long were you in the hospital for? And even then, was it like, okay, we're good, or are we still in the woods?
Yeah. So after the surgery, it was awful. I still had a brain drain in. I don't know. It probably has a fancier name than that, but
it's a big pipe.
It's it's brain drain. And I had to
see
like
band name.
Yeah, exactly.
Brain drain.
So they kept me in. They were happy with knowing my mom was going to take like the rest of the month off work. And I think as soon as they heard that, they gave me the boot.
Right.
So I think I was only in the hospital for like 5 days. And I know you were there the day I was discharged because you helped push the wheelchair down. And I just remember, I'll never forget like the little tiniest cracks and bumps. It was like an earthquake in my brain. Oh man, I must have been so cranky. So
what kind of stuff did they, how did they say this is going to affect you? How is this going to change your day to day?
Well, it was so interesting because at first, like the immediate problems that I had were like, I had this unbearable like jaw pain and nerve pain because they had to peel back the muscles over top of the jaw to get to the bone flap. So I had a craniotomy, like they cut out a bone flap.
Yeah, I remember the picture of the scar.
Yeah.
The question mark almost looking.
Yeah, it was wild. 33 staples. And yeah, so they cut a square out of my skull and set it off to the side while they operated on the brain. Yeah, I know. And they said, you're going to have intense jaw pain because we moved that jaw muscle. So I struggled a lot with the nerve pain in my face immediately after, but then came like the sweats in the night from all the medications and the withdrawal, throwing up from all the medication and whatever. And then it was balance and memory. And I kind of talked, you'd have to ask my mom, but she said I kind of talked with a lag. Like I kind of talked like this for a little bit. And it was, so the injury was in the right temporal lobe. So that is like problem solving, short-term memory, ability to foresee consequences. So then I started.
That sounds fancy.
Yeah. I started doing things like not paying my cell phone bill and then surprised when they turned off my phone. And it was like, how could you do this to me? Like, what has happened? I just, that cognitive reasoning, like, hey, if I don't pay this bill, they're going to turn it off. It was.
I never even thought that'd be a thing.
I know. So it was really bizarre. And I had a lot of help and support from like Acquired Brain Injury, Saskatchewan, and all the doctors, of course, and my family. But I just wanted to be left alone with my injury. Okay. If that makes sense.
Were you just probably sick of telling the story again?
Yeah, like
now that I'm making you tell it again.
No, and I'm so far removed from it. It almost feels like I've read a book and now I'm just in a book club telling you what I read in the book. It almost doesn't feel like me until last night when I read my surgery report and I'm like, oh, this makes me feel sick. Like, ugh. But
well, imagine how your parents must have felt.
I know, and it was disastrous. And like I remember, of course, everyone handles trauma differently, and so my mom was just a basket case, as any mom would be. And I could just hear them like fighting or arguing. And my dad would, he'd say like, you've been like this since Hayley's accident and blah, blah, blah. And I was like carrying, how teenage angst already. And I'm like, now I'm carrying this weight of like.
This burden, if you will.
Yeah. It was awful.
Sorry this happened.
I was so depressed. And even now, like looking back, I wish someone, I guess they probably tried to help me, but I was too stubborn. But
that's fair.
It was black. Like if I look back on it, it's very, very dark. I wanted to be alone with my injury. Yeah. And I was very much, why did this happen to me? All my friends are out partying and going to concerts. Like I'll never play contact sports again.
Is that still a thing?
It's not recommended. Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. Which is really hard because man, I'd love to be playing football and rugby.
Interesting.
For sure. So yeah, that's hard. But the only thing I really struggle with now is ringing in the ears, which still like at night when it's quiet, this ringing in my ears is just insane. And I asked my neurosurgeon about it and he said, that's the number one complaint that I hear from my patients is the ringing in the ears, like decades later.
So after it happened, you said you were gone for 5 days and then I'm blanking on the year that this happened. Were you still in high school?
06, so just a year after. I graduated, so I was 19.
So like, did you have a job at the time that you had to stay away from?
Yeah, so SPCA, which I loved. And they were so gracious to me with taking all the time I needed off, which ended up being a year. I took a year off of work. Yeah, it was crazy. And like SPCA, you don't think of it, but it was actually quite a physical job cleaning the runs and taking the dogs out and stuff. So yeah, I didn't go back for a year. I just didn't trust my memory, my balance, even basic instructions and tasks. Like I remember getting home and having my plate at the dinner table and looking at the potatoes in the pot and thinking, okay, how do I get the potatoes from the pot? The
problem solving skill
plate?
Almost, right?
Yeah, it's that problem solving right temporal lobe. Like, Potatoes are there and I need them here. How do I
can just draw this out.
Okay. Homer Simpson's like the thing you use to dig.
What's it called?
Yeah, I need
Forgetting
that.
the most basic words.
Yeah.
I still do that.
Or I'd be in a group of people and all of a sudden people would be looking at me and I'm like, yes. They're like, well, finish what you were going to say. And
I'm just like,
oh, I was like, I thought I was just thinking that. Did I say, I started something, like I started to say something and
away you went.
Gone. Yeah.
Was there any kind of physical therapy you had to do? Was there anything you had to almost quote unquote relearn?
Yeah. So balance was the biggest. So I was fine, like walking and stuff. It was when I bent down to put on my shoes or, reach up for something or stood up too quickly, I would really lose my balance to the point of like falling over, like not your normal.
Yeah.
Ooh, stood up too fast.
Not the normal ditzy girl thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was really hard. So I did do some STAR rehab in Saskatoon there. They helped me with some balance coordination and I had to do some, I don't even know what you would call it, like some brain training. I did like crossword puzzles, word searches, lots of reading when it wasn't too hard.
Yeah.
If I wasn't getting headaches, and at the time, like screen time wasn't a big thing, so I spent a lot of time.
Yeah, this is the days before
renting movies, like physical. Had to go to the store and rent movies.
Probably the Tempo, right?
Yeah, I don't even know what it was
back in the day.
Yeah.
So like when you finished your, not finish your therapy, as you're going through this at all, was there ever a time where it just became like, I don't know if I can do this anymore? Like this is getting to the point of, I don't want to, not dark like that, but in the sense of like something has to change. I need to change who I am. Did it change who you are, who you were, if you will?
Yeah. And I think I just had to come to the conclusion that I wasn't going back. And like everything became before the accident and HAYLEY after the accident. Like, you know how it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Something major in your life just becomes a marker for time. And so I think I did mourn and grieve like this partying stage or, my friends just being careless with whatever. And I just had to be so careful. And
it probably made you think of things differently and how you saw the world differently. And
definitely. And we don't have to get too far into it, but it really changed my faith in a lot of ways too, because I wasn't living a Christian life by any means. Mm-hmm. And when you get wheeled down a hallway and all you can see is the lights and your mom and dad are like, we love you. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
She might die.
Yeah.
And
we will see you later.
Yeah. Like it really impacted my life and changed me. And I remember, waking up and being like, whew, okay. Like that was close.
Yeah.
How many more chances am I going to get? Like I better.
And I think it wasn't long after that they finally put mesh up in the rink too.
Oh yeah, it was like 2 weeks later.
Was it really?
And like the story was on like Global News. It was in all the papers and stuff, and arenas all over the province were like, we better get our shit together.
Because I remember thinking that because I was refereeing hockey there and just doing minor hockey and whatever, and you would talk to people over the glass, like typical small town thing, no big deal.
You could lean right over.
You could just lean on the glass, and it's just like looking back now, like how quaint that was.
Yeah.
And I guess you fell on that sword to get mesh put up in the rink.
Yeah.
I guess thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it only cost me a year of intense depression and therapy. Yeah.
So like now that I was kind of going with how you've changed, and for those who don't know HAYLEY that well, she's very soft spoken and doesn't like to talk about any real issues in the world. She likes to stay
mild,
very, very hidden. Mm-hmm. Was that something that you felt like now that I have this, I don't want to call it let's call it a second chance. Mm-hmm. Did you feel almost like a responsibility, or not but a desire to be more involved in things? And now that I have this life that is still going, I want to quote unquote make the best of it and that kind of thing?
No, I didn't feel like that at first at all. And you got to remember I was 19. So mostly I was just pissed off.
Yeah. Just the angst. Yeah.
I was mostly pissed off. But it really did. I think it did play into, my passion for things, or having a connection to things and taking a shit situation and trying to either help others or what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just having that personal connection to something and saying like, listen, I've been there. Like if you haven't gone through dark things, how can you help other people in the dark? Like, how do you reach the broken if you haven't gone through hard things? And so that really, when I started getting involved in concussion stuff and taking all my training, it was like, I just felt so connected to it and so passionate about it. Like I had a dog in the fight, like I want to look out for these kids because I know what it's like to have concussions, have a brain injury, Can
you touch on that a bit more? Like how you're more involved in it? Is there a certain community you're in or a society that you're working with or?
So concussion management is all across Saskatchewan and geez, I wish there was something more official, but I've just taken a bunch of little courses, either online or in person. I know the SHSA offered me a concussion program that was so helpful. And so once I got involved with rugby, it just kind of became my pet project, if you will. Like, you guys do the coaching, you guys, try and win games. I'll keep the players safe.
Right.
And then I got on with I was already working at Warman High, but they asked me to be the game day trainer for the high school football team. And same thing. It was just my absolute honor and pleasure to do nothing but watch these kids for signs of concussion and injury and pull them off when they need it.
You could see it before they could see it. The whole idea of like where you mentioned about, I'm fine, leave me alone. That's obviously what they're going through and how their feelings. I remember when I had Bobby on, cause she had a crazy horse injury and it was real bad. And she mentioned at the time, even then the science or the study of concussion still wasn't as big as it is now. No. And she mentioned, when Sidney Crosby got hurt, then all of a sudden it got a little more, but even at the time in 2006, there obviously wasn't that much information about it.
Oh my gosh, no.
Learning by the seat of your pants kind of thing.
I think in 2006, it was still like, don't let her fall asleep and, dark room. Like
the things you
every
see
time
on a TV
I open
show.
my email, there's something changed about concussion and what to look for and how to treat it, it was, every time I go onto the internet, there's something new that they've discovered about concussions, which is great. The more we know, the better we can treat them. So
what you mentioned about like team sports and stuff, has that kind of changed how you look at team sports? Are you more concerned about your kids being in team sports, or is it more the opposite now where you have more information, so you want them to be more involved?
Yeah. Oh, that's so hard because we are such sports fanatics in our house. Like, I want my kids to play sports so bad, but I would be lying if I said concussions don't scare me. Yeah, of course. Of course. And I'm definitely not going to be that parent that's like, oh, you want to play hockey so bad? Too bad. I'm not going to let you because mom had a brain injury 20 years ago, but knowledge is key. So
the reason I bring that up is the idea of the parent or that generation imparting their fears on the next generation or your children's generation. Very similar to how, to not get too left field, we'll come back, but how obviously there's the big thing of racism in the States is exploding, but it seems like to be more of a generational problem where that is being instilled on the next generations. And where you mentioned about you do want them to play sports, but you don't want to put your fears on them.
Totally.
And I feel like that's still where a lot of the world is on other things, where there's still that fear of what they have, so they impart it on their kids, whether they mean it to or not.
Totally.
And that it could just, really sidetrack how your kids see it. And like, do they know about your injuries and that?
Well, Sloane's 3, so she doesn't know yet. And just going through the stuff yesterday to prepare for the podcast, I'm like, man, I can't wait to show Sloane these gross pictures when she's ready. But, I think what you mentioned, though, I think it goes the other way. Like, my dad's dad played hockey, so you're going to play hockey whether you want to or not. Right. Like, and it's really hard not to push those things. We give our kids mini sticks and rugby balls and we're like, hey, come on, do it. Yeah. like, don't you just love this? But it's like, yeah, if she wants to do art or drama or we'll fully support that. And then I don't have to worry about concussion. So that'd be great too.
It's not full contact art.
Yeah.
Which, man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we should start that.
Okay. Write that down.
Yeah,
we should do that later. Okay, so then now to kind of segue into, which I also wanted to have you on to, is kind of talking about, unfortunately, the things that are going on in the world. And the reason I want to talk to you about is I'm a very passive person. I don't.
What's that like?
It's great. I don't get very involved. I like to sit back and, watch from the wings, if you will.
Okay.
And I just want to kind of talk to you about your, let's call it opinion. Everyone has their opinion.
Sure.
Starting with even something as simple. Let's start with the easy one, the COVID situation.
Sure.
Do you feel like we are doing the right thing in quote unquote quarantining, or do you feel like we're opening too soon, or how do you feel about that?
Interesting. Well, I'm a firm believer in science, also a Christian. Wow. What? Weird, hey?
I'll have to edit that later.
Would you believe
that you can
believe in God and science?
Crazy, right?
Who'd have thought? So when I hear the world's leading scientists say, hey, yo, we should social distance, or we should be washing our hands more, we should quarantine for this amount of time so that we can prepare. Who am I to be like, whoa, I Googled this. And I think I need to go to Walmart and I need a haircut. So, screw you guys.
Yeah, my rights.
Yeah. And do I think you should blindly follow and not, question things? Mm-hmm. Of course not. And I was the questioner in high school.
Right.
Hand went up after everything. Why?
Mm-hmm.
But if someone much smarter than me is telling me, hey, maybe we should quarantine, I'm going to respect that. And is it inconvenient for me to wear a mask at Costco? Sure. Is it the least I can do to protect the people that went to war for this country?
Right. And that is the best way of putting it too. I'm very polar. I mentioned this on the last Dirty 30 of I am agreeing with how we are distancing and on all the all that fun stuff, which does change every day, which is also frustrating. But there's also the part of me that wants us just to do the old chickenpox party and just be like, if you get it, you get it, and let's figure it out later.
Right.
Mainly because of the frustration of it is taxing, but then you step back and you say, like, as you said, it's literally the least we can do to do this.
It's a minor inconvenience. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you run a small business, this is not a minor inconvenience for you. This is your livelihood.
Get it.
So please, small business owners, don't burn my house down.
Yeah. We're talking more about the general public here.
Yeah.
And how they perceive things and how the protests of I need a haircut. And I understand that the people cutting the hair need the money, and I get it, but there's better ways of saying it and better ways of doing it than just being like, you're taking away my rights.
Well, and the double standard. So the same people that were out protesting that they needed a haircut are now like, oh, Black Lives Matter? What? You guys need to stay home. Why aren't you social distancing? You're like, right. You guys can't be gathering in groups.
Yeah, that's like the last one that came out was it's okay to protest with 100 people, but you can't have 4 people or 6 people in your backyard.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, wait, what? You know? And so again, it changes every day. So that's where, again, I come in the chickenpox party where I'm just like, I am so sick of it changing every day of what we're supposed to do and not do.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's frustrating for sure. And there's just a pile of information, a pile of opinions. The data changes every day. Mm-hmm. But all we have to do is look at Italy or Britain, and it's like, whew. I don't want to over, and you're absolutely right. And I think we did an awesome job. And thankfully in Saskatchewan, we're so spread out. I'm just glad our workers, our healthcare workers, our frontline workers.
Yeah.
It's looking like they're not going to be overwhelmed.
Right.
So
when I went and got my appendix removed, that was kind of right when this whole thing started. Mm-hmm. And so my fear was, okay, I have to go to the hospital.
Right.
Where the bad thing is, that's where the bad thing lives, is at the hospital. I was scared, not even for the appendix thing. I don't give a shit about that. But It was like, I don't want to go to the hospital because I'm going to be around all the lepers and
I had a DNC right in the middle of it.
And it's just
same thing.
Yeah.
Empty hospital. And I was like, oh, don't breathe on me.
Right.
Stay away.
I got my own room though. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I got a whole floor.
Did you really?
Oh, it was just
Isn't it weird when the hospital is empty and or quiet? It's weird.
Like the lights were off in some sections. Like it was really strange. Yeah, it was like really bizarre.
Video game like Silent Hill or something.
Yeah. This is how murder started. Like
you gotta stop listening to those murder podcasts, man.
I know. I tell my husband, like, I have nightmares. Even before this, I was like, okay, I'm in Martinsville. Like, if Tyler chops me up into little bits, this is where I am, and I want dark poutine to cover my podcast, my murder podcast.
Is that your favorite one?
Yeah, dark poutine. Have you listened to it?
No, I was gonna say if you have a plug you want to give, let's see, what's your favorite one?
Yeah, I love dark poutine. They're Canadian.
Okay.
2 guys, and they're funny, but not disrespectful. Like they're not.
That's a fine line.
Yeah, like they don't make jokes about that's not a way to get ahead in life.
See you next time.
No, they're funny, but it's good. Yeah, really like dark poutine.
I listen to like a lot of the movie podcasts. So Mr. Sunday, I listen to him a lot. That's kind of the only thing I'm really into is movies and stuff. I'm writing a movie right now, and
writing a screenplay.
I'm writing a screenplay, my first time, which is hard as hell.
Yeah,
it's so much easier just to make fun of movies and say how could you screw that up?
Yeah,
than to actually sit down and write a script. And then realize, okay, this part doesn't make sense because you just told this character he was over here. Yeah. Instead of being like, who cares? You know, I got to figure it out.
Armchair critic.
Oh, it's so much easier. Yeah. So I guess the next one now is the new thing that's happening, of course, with the RCMP now all of a sudden are getting all these accusations and different people are coming forward saying this happened to me, this happened to me.
Yeah.
And the anger response is outweighing, I believe, the let's think about this and see what the actual problem is, where a lot of people are saying the defund the police thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very misunderstood saying.
It is.
And I feel like you have a note about that.
I do have notes for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I was going to say my thing with it is I've got friends who work in law enforcement.
Of course,
and stuff.
Me too.
And I feel like sometimes they feel that we're lumping them all into the same pot.
Kind of like how Black people feel.
Probably, yeah.
But yes.
You know?
Teachers is the same thing, Tyler. Like I'm an EA, my husband's a teacher, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
They lump everyone in. Yeah, and it's like, what?
I've got it pretty hard being Caucasian, blonde hair, blue eyed. So I understand what it's like to be, looked down on. Like, man.
I know someone sees your name at the top of a resume and they're like, don't even call this guy.
That is definitely British.
Don't even call this guy. No. And so, I have to say this first and foremost, like, I love the police. Like I would never, when I call the police, I want them to come. Right. I want them to be there. But just like teachers, all of a sudden, this job description is including therapy, counseling, child psychology. It's insane what we expect from them.
Right.
Like I read a thing and it's exaggerating, but a cat is stuck in a tree, call the cops. Dead animal on the highway, call the cops. Someone brings a gun into a bank, you call the cops. Like, someone's beating their wife, you call the cops. You call the police for all of these things. And how are they supposed to be trained experts and all that? That's not fair.
Someone's locked themselves in their house who obviously need emotional counseling. Yes. Call the cops.
Yeah. Someone's on a bridge about to jump. Yeah. You call the police.
So of course these people are feeling insanely overwhelmed.
Yes. That's not fair. So defund the police.
Yes, go.
Here's my thing.
Yep.
So someone sent this to me, and it says, I know defund the police seems radical and scary, but dissolve police departments, then rebuild them as one small facet in a network of specialized services so police aren't called to handle problems they're woefully ill-equipped to solve isn't as easy to chant. So when you're in a protest, you chant defund the police.
Doesn't fit on a piece of particle board as well.
On the back of my Fruit Loops box. And so disclaimer, I did not print defund the police on the cardboard because I didn't feel informed enough on the subject. But now that I've done some more reading, it definitely sounds to me, from what I understand, defund the police is not synonymous with abolish the police.
Right.
Defund the police, from what I understand, again, means let's reallocate these funds into social programs. Oh, but that's socialism. Oh. So are highways. Yeah. So is car insurance. Yep. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And I remember having a conversation with a bunch of friends on our little group chat or whatever. And I kept saying, like, it wasn't even about this. It was something stupid about, like, with the businesses not doing well with money and stuff. And I brought up the fact of, like, did you know that if the NHL, the NBA, the MLB, like the big ones, the big six, including soccer and stuff. If all the athletes gave 1% of what they have as money, it would cover the entire country's problem with this debt situation and how to pay everybody. 1%. That's it.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, well, that sounds like communism. And I was like, well, it sounds great. Why don't we just sit down in a room? We'll put out a block of each of the different isms.
Yeah.
Let's pick the good parts.
What about ism?
And we'll make our own new ism.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way I think,
exactly.
You know, but you can't, because someone is angry about this ism.
Exactly.
So it can't be that one.
Exactly. And I, in doing some more reading about this, Charlie Clark said, the mayor in Saskatoon said, can we arrest our way out of our crime problem? And it's like, everyone's like, more officers. We need more officers. We need more. And it's like, I was reading 20% of the overall budget for Saskatoon goes to the Saskatoon police.
Right.
So 110 million annually. I'm not going to pretend like I know the ins and outs of the Saskatoon police and how they're trained and what they're trained. Of course. Yeah. But could we not? I'm all for having more money taken off my paycheck if it means money going into social programs.
Right.
Because everyone's like, well, the crime or this or that. And it's like, no, you're looking at the what and not the why. Why was George Floyd in jail for 8 months prior to his thing? Why is there black on black crime? Why are Aboriginals living in lower housing in the hood? It's always the what. We need to scale back and look at the why. And that social programs is maybe not the perfect answer, but it's a start.
Yeah.
So let's get more money pumping into social workers and mental health and places like the Lighthouse or the Bridge or whatever. We're cutting funding to those places. Right. And then everyone's, we need more officers to deal with all this crime. And it's like, no, that's a Band-Aid solution.
Right. And that's the problem. It's not just crime. They're lumping a lot of things into crime.
Yes.
That could be tackled by a social worker that understands human behavior and people with mental disabilities and stuff.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that mental health and poverty contribute to crime.
Yeah.
Well, so why are these people in poverty and struggling with mental health? You just have to back up a few degrees.
And then that's the other, I think I wrote down here, is was my little note of, people are quick to jump. I think I might have said with Wade's thing too, to anger first.
Sure.
And not understanding first. So of course, when the unfortunate and tragic death of Floyd in the States, the first reaction wasn't what happened, why did it happen, how can we fix it?
Right.
It was, let's burn this mother down. And that's the unfortunate part that, again, I said, I think last time re-saying my things, is that people are going to remember the part. They're going to look at that part. Oh, they burned down a Wendy's and whatever.
Yeah, they looted the malls.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Like the violent rioters? Yeah. Okay, sure.
Instead of, people, because they go into anger first. They go into hate and anger first, instead of going into how could we fix this, the whys, why did this happen, and things like that. And I think that the underlying problem, as you mentioned, is not to stop paying the police. It's
of course not.
It's to take the money. Fuck the police. Is take that money and put it into better ways to use it. But that's not going to happen overnight.
Of course. And you really need, we're not fighting against people. We're fighting against ideas, right? Racist, systematic and systemic ideas. And so, the old argument is like, well, I wasn't around. I didn't enslave anyone. And it's like, no, but the idea lives. The people that did that are long dead, but the ideas live. And you're right. I think we have I'm not going to speak for Black people by any means, but log on to any Facebook thread under any Star Phoenix or CBC News article, and you will see a complete and utter lack of empathy, because all we do is read words. We don't tie those words to humans behind them. So it's so easy to dehumanize, the Colton Boushys or the George Floyds even. You just see the words and not the human. And it's like, no, there's a person behind that. Colton Boushey had a family that loved him very much. We just see these articles on Facebook and we're like, well, let me crack my knuckles and get typing here. And it's like, no, these people are actually real human beings. And you're right. We jump to anger. We make quick assumptions about who these people are. my goodness, if I were to get killed or something awful, like what would they say about me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What would they say about me on Facebook?
It'd be all terrible.
It would be all terrible. It'd be like, that girl is so hot and smart.
You're going to write your own.
Yeah.
Write my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you were, speaking of which, you were involved with the two, I don't want to call them protests, rallies?
Rallies. Yeah.
Rallies, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Was there
Solidarity
anything,
March.
so the first one, because there was two just recently, am I right? So the first one went to City Hall. Is that right? Or did I get that wrong?
Yeah. We started at City Hall and
That was a March one or whatever?
Yeah.
Was there anything you learned from other people there that kind of changed, not made change, but just made you think of things a little bit differently, or new information that you may have gotten, or because there was a lot of people there?
that first one they guessed was 4,000 people strong. So it was just Sham and I. We left the kids at home. We were trying our best to social distance, so we weren't close to the front, and the male that organized it was using a megaphone, and it was really hard to hear him. But I did catch a few of the names that he mentioned, and I loved that I expected him to mention, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Colton Boushey, but he also mentioned like Neil Stonechild and the Starlight Tours.
Okay.
In Saskatoon's awful history. And I really appreciated that, because this is not a new problem, and Saskatoon and Saskatchewan are not exempt from these.
No, we have a pretty specific area of issues.
I think we're nicer racists.
That's a good way of saying it.
We're more polite about
With the polite racists.
Yeah, with our ideas.
And speaking of megaphones, that's a very common thing I get from renting them out, that it wasn't loud enough.
Yeah.
And I blame movies, because you see a guy in a megaphone
Yeah.
and somehow the entire city can hear it.
He's reaching
It's
everywhere.
not how it works, people.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you want everybody to hear you, you need multiple things.
So Black Lives Matter, YXE put on the second one. That was just this past Saturday. And it was not their first rodeo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was awesome. They had speakers and microphones, and it was great. We could hear them. They had performances and speeches, and it was awesome.
And how was the vibe of people too? How did everyone, for lack of a better word, behave themselves?
Totally. In both. And like I'm always earth conscious. I try to be anyway. And so I was looking for like litter and garbage and signs, and like there was nothing. There was no fighting, no wrecking, no looting, nothing. Like there was no garbage left over from what I saw, which makes me really, really proud. And it just gives the haters less to talk about. And
like I mentioned with the Floyd thing, that's the first thing people are going to remember. And unfortunately I do too. The first thing I think of when I think of the Floyd protests is all the crap they burned down, and then the other people each other killed. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, it's awful. And I'm not going to speak for Black people by any means, but if your son was killed or your dad was killed, you're grieving. And I think anger is part of grief.
Right.
I would probably break shit too.
I'm glad to hear that it was as clean and respectful as it was. Mm-hmm. If we could then take that mentality to Craven and not make Craven a landfill every time it happens, that'd be very much appreciated.
Cesspool of... I've never been to Craven, but the pictures are...
It's brutal. But again, just trying to add a little levity to that one. Yeah. But yes, I'm glad that I want to see what your opinion of that was, that yes, everyone was respectful. And, I think there was a lot of fear that they were going to go to the police station and torches and pitchforks. That's a tough word, apparently. And I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah,
so
me
that's
too.
Really well.
Yeah, me too.
What is your opinion on the taking down of all these statues that are happening in the States and all over the place? Do you think it's something that needs to be done, or do you think it's something that is just trying to distract from other things?
No, I absolutely 100% support the removal of KKK leaders and slave owners. Like, we glorify them incorrectly in our textbooks. We
the biggest one being Columbus.
Yeah, exactly. We glorify, we throw up the Confederate flag and call it culture, call it a way of life. Mm-hmm. let's get real.
Okay.
We do not need statues of KKK owners or slave owners and KKK leaders. Right. And the most recent one I read was they wanted to replace this KKK statue in Tennessee with that of Dolly Parton, which I think is hilarious. And why not?
Yeah, sure.
Why not? And like, let's not pretend like you're taking your kids and standing in front of these statues and magically acquiring knowledge.
Good point.
Taking down a statue doesn't erase history, but is it going to help heal those who were oppressed by said leaders?
Right.
Then let's do it.
Did you watch the latest Dave Chappelle thing?
846.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
That was intense.
Did you feel something when you watched it? Because it was.
Yes. And I have to be very honest that I didn't know a lot about the Floyd death. Mm-hmm. I knew that he died, and I knew that a cop was responsible, and I knew that other cops had seen it. And that's about it.
Yeah.
I didn't really dive into, again, being very passive.
Yeah.
I didn't read
and I
too much
didn't
into
watch it either because I think we have a bit of an addiction to trauma porn. And if that was my dad again, I wouldn't want.
Of course.
I didn't want to.
And I learned a lot from that. And one of them being that it was someone being knelt on for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Yeah. When you just think of it, like you just counting to 30 in your head is scary.
We knelt in the first rally in Saskatoon. We knelt in the park, in Kiwanis Park, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And let me tell you, it's an eternity.
Right. Well, even like a Remembrance Day, the 2 minutes of silence feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
Which, again, shows the real people who actually sacrificed. And when we complain about having to wear gloves, come on.
Yeah.
Again, not knowing too much about it, that's about as much as I know about it. I don't know. And that's why I don't want to say I am condemning anybody because that's as much information as I have. Right. And I feel that's maybe a way to look at it until I learn more actual information. And I feel more people need to do it that way.
Totally.
Don't condemn something, someone, whatever, until you have all the facts, be them good or bad.
Right.
Right. It made, as I do more research and learn about this, I will find out A, B, and C about this, and that can change my opinion about it.
Sure.
But to jump into it, being right off the bat that fuck that cop, fuck the police is not the way to start things.
Right.
Because then again, you're bundling everybody together.
Right.
And it's as a society that we are supposed to be advanced and evolved, it still feels like we're in the Lord of the Flies, man.
We have more information at our fingertips than ever.
But we also have more disinformation
dumb
at our fingertips. And you mentioned about like searching on Google, and I'm not saying you're doing it, but the idea that getting people's news from Google, it's not a news source. If you want to search why the world is flat, you will find why the world is flat. So I think people need to, and I mentioned again in the 30-30 about who do you trust? Like, who do you trust?
Right. Okay. So, I mean, there's people and then there's news outlets, right? Like,
and we're using giant air quotes when we say news, or do you actually mean like news outlets?
Well, okay. So like on Instagram or Facebook, do I trust the wording in CTV or, Joe Blow writing at Global News? Like maybe not entirely. If someone sends me a YouTube video on why vaccines don't work, the very first thing I do is search the author or who's in the video. Like, who is this person? Right. So I do kind of have you asked me this question and I did kind of make notes like, okay, what do I do first?
And these are all things that people need to do. If you are reading these articles, it's not hard to make an article. I can make one in about 5 minutes if I wanted to.
You can find evidence to support anything.
Exactly.
Right. And so, I try and fact check. I check the dates of the articles. I Google the author. Is it on YouTube? Like, who's sharing this? Is it the New York Times or is it a YouTube channel? Is there, like, these are easy ones, easy red flags. Is there spelling mistakes in the article? Do they cite their sources? Do other people in their field respect them? Do they condone their work? I mean, there's, you're right. There's tons of articles. You can make any claim and back it up with something on the internet,
right?
Which is unfortunate. But then I also look, I think I threw this up on Instagram not too long ago, like I check my husband's opinion, I check a coworker's opinion, and then I check my good buddy Connor Schramm's opinion. And it's like, I kind of check my gauges, you know, and it's like, these are people that are smarter than me, that have similar views of science and faith as me, or human issues or human rights, whatever. And I typically will line up my gauges with them. Obviously not to a T. We're not going to agree on everything, but...
And that's why I like to have lots of different opinions. Again, having you on where you do have such a strong opinion about things. And I'm not saying it's a bad way at all.
No, and that's a compliment.
It is.
I'm very convicted. I'm not ever going to. And I love that you mentioned, Tyler, that you said, oh, before I hit share, I want to look at A, B, and C, and that might change my opinion. Okay, but that's what sets you apart from the masses. Because someone will be presented with facts and be like, nope, not changing my mind.
Yeah.
I will always, if someone sends me a video on why vaccines don't work, I'll watch it with an open mind.
Right. And I think it's too easy nowadays to make this disinformation. Netflix. Totally. I'm not saying these are wrong, but like if you watch any of the documentaries on there, like there was the Epstein one just recently. There was the one about Hulk Hogan's sex tape, which was
missed that one, but I did watch the Epstein one.
There was a lot more involved. It was about it involved like a newspaper from Nevada, Las Vegas, being bought out by a guy who wanted to be on Hogan's side. So he started paying for Hogan's lawyer fee. It was like, it got insanely convoluted, but they very much pointed their opinion in a certain direction and you had to follow that direction.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And people are taking that as gospel.
Yeah.
You know,
gospel truth.
Not to talk about religion or anything. But that's the problem though. Like where do you find this actual information then?
Right.
Who do you trust?
Oh,
there's no more Walter Cronkites anymore.
I know.
It's no more Barbara Walters.
I know who has integrity anymore. Oh, see, and I typically I feel like the Washington Post on Instagram, at least for me anyway, and maybe this is totally biased. The New York Times, like that's pretty honorable and truthful investigative journalism,
right?
In my opinion. And some of the opinion pieces that they share, I do not agree with. But that just furthers, if I'm agreeing with every single piece they're putting out, then that's not right.
Yeah.
Something has to not line up for it to be center, right? Like, yeah, if they're just sharing articles that agree with you, well, then you need to diversify your news feed.
It's a good point to make.
You're just surrounding yourself with people that think like you. How are you ever going to grow?
And that's kind of where I was going with this whole thing. The idea of like, I am a very passive person. You're a very openly spoken person. We all need to have both of those things. We all need to have people in our circles that are both.
I totally agree.
Right? And if anybody can take anything from this, it's like, don't just have blind faith on a subject. Again, I'm not saying that the Floyd death wasn't bad. All I'm saying is don't follow the BuzzFeed video news that gives you X information without at least reading the sources. Where is it coming from?
Totally.
You know, we have both extremes. We have an exuberant amount of information at our fingertips, but it's so easy to bottleneck it down to what you want to see and push everything else to the side.
Of course.
Right?
Critical thinking is just about the number one. Everyone's like, what do you want Sloan and Torrin to be when you grow up? And we're like, critical thinkers. That's
a fantastic point. Let's do that. So like if you could teach your kids one big point to move forward in their lives, obviously, like you said, critical thinking.
Critical thinking, for sure. What a skill to have in 2020. Critical thinking. Thinking before you hit the share button. I try a kind of a rule of thumb for myself is, even facts aside, is this helpful or hurtful?
Right.
If by me sharing this, you know, someone the other day shared an anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ plus thing on their page. And I thought, okay, you're allowed to believe, you know, in what you believe, and you're allowed to have your opinions.
Right.
But you sharing this on your Facebook for other people to see, some people that are obviously going to be LGBTQ on your feed are going to see this. Is this helpful, this article, or is it hurtful?
That's a great way of saying it.
Why?
Yeah.
Why am I going out of my way to hurt people?
Yeah. like you said, we're supposed to be more civilized and more advanced, and it feels like we're still not getting past that. Again, to go back to real quick of the Dave Chappelle thing, he talks about
watch it.
It's so good, and he talks about a story about his great grandfather or his great great grandfather that was a slave. It's not that long ago.
No,
like
it's not that long ago.
We're just in this new, everything's exponential growth, right? So like we're more advanced than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. It also means that we can't just keep the same thought process and the same,
of course,
maybe belief's not the right word, but again, there's no reason to have that much hate in people's lives and over dumb things like race. And I don't get it. And that's, but again, it's something so ingrained in society that like, I'm trying not to get all sweary about it, but like,
do it.
There's no point to be a fucking racist. I don't get it. Like that's, as Caucasian, I'm about as white can be.
You're statistically the most privileged person on the planet.
And I don't.
And I'm second.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the blue hair.
That's right.
I don't understand the need, the want to have that much hate in you. It's exhausting being angry all the time.
I don't know how people carry it. And you know what's almost harder for me, Tyler, is people that are micro racist or people that just don't realize how the systems benefit them. And it's, Karen.
Yeah.
Poor Karen. God help you. Poor Karen.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I'm not racist. Like, I don't yell N words at people. I'm not outwardly racist, but it's like, no, but you're in the realm of like, I'm going to cross the street if there's a dark skinned,
right.
If a brown person comes in my store, I'm going to follow them. These little things. Oh, this resume says, eagle or hawk or whatever. I'm just going to file this one in the trash.
Right.
Like these tiny little, so you're not shouting N words from your car, but you're still participating in these micro racisms that keep brown people down and white people up. I said to my husband, it's like a game of asshole. Like the president, white people, we get the 2 best cards, and the asshole, brown people, get the 2 worst. It's the game is designed to keep the up people up and the down people down.
Right.
And it's working perfectly. The system's not broken. It's working perfectly.
That's a great point to make. I'd love to do one more thing with you.
Please.
What is your opinion on how, from the top of the top, Trudeau?
What's my opinion?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Who would ever in their right mind want to run a country in today's day and age?
Full disclosure, I voted for him.
Okay, so I voted for him in the first election.
Yep.
I voted strategically in the second.
Okay.
I really liked Singh's campaign.
Okay.
Jagmeet Singh. So I voted NDP. I did not vote Liberal, but I did vote Liberal in the first. Full disclosure, I think he's done a pretty darn good job of running the country from the center. I feel, and I mean, politicians gonna politic, does he deserve to be made fun of when he says stupid shit about water bottles and moistly speak? He knew as soon as it left his lips, it was a mistake.
Right. And that's why I love, not love, but also give him, I'm on his side of when he took this 20 seconds to think about what to say about Trump. The guy hasn't said something smart in front of the camera his whole career. He's terrible. I don't know if he gets nervous or what his deal is, or you probably see his scriptwriter off to the side being like, for fuck's sake, man. Like,
well, and here's the thing. People are like, oh, he's stupid, he's an idiot. And I'm like, well, actually, he's actually quite bright. Like, have you seen the videos of him explaining like quantum physics and stuff? Like, and
he's really like sciencey, booky smart.
He's not dumb.
Yeah.
He's not dumb. I think he's done a pretty darn good job in like this COVID stuff. Can you imagine being the leader of a country when this pandemic hits? Like, there is no manual. There is no handbook. I'm sure history will look back and be like, well, he should have, could have, would have done this, whatever. But
like the first thing you said of like, I couldn't imagine running a country. Like,
if that was my husband or my dad or me running this country, like, I don't know how.
Give the guy a break a little bit.
Oh, it's awful. And he approved those pipelines, and that hurt my heart a little bit because I voted for him initially because of his stance on climate change and the environment. So, but then I thought, you got to.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Totally. And you got to appeal to the oil sector right now. And I mean, yeah, in a perfect world, we're going to curb our reliance on coal and gas, oil, petroleum.
That's my favorite one. Like unfortunately, you have to compare Trump and Trudeau together. It's the same times, the same whatever. I still think he's doing a better job than Trump. That's just me,
Tyler, don't say that. You got to say that with more conviction. Like you shrugged up your shoulders like
don't want to hurt anybody's
feelings. You couldn't be more different. I mean, Trump, every time he opens his mouth, it's lies.
It's very, it's almost getting comical to the point of like, oh God, what's he going to say now?
I feel like I'm watching an SNL skit that won't end.
Yeah.
And people are dying.
Yeah. Is that Baldwin up there? Or is that Trudeau?
It's awful.
Trump.
Yeah. No, thank God for Justin Trudeau in our country, honestly. And like, I had a very good friend say to me, he was an immigrant from Scotland, and he said, Hayley, it just doesn't matter. Like Harper's in, Chrétien's in, Trudeau's in. He's like, it doesn't matter who's in Canada. Right. We still live in one of the best countries in the world. Right. Like your life isn't going to change. And I know everyone's freaked out when Trudeau got in for his second term. Mm-hmm. Did their lives change at all? My child tax benefit went up. I got a longer mat leave. That's about it. Trudeau being in power doesn't impact a ton of people. And I realize there are problems for people with small businesses and taxes and all that stuff. And then vote accordingly. Mm-hmm. And I would say I would never pressure my friends and family to vote for Trudeau. If it's in your best interest to vote for someone like Harper, who's more invested in jobs over the environment, please do. Mm-hmm. Please make an informed vote and vote for your best interest, which is what they do not do in the States. Like one of my friends just said, my dad's works in the oil field. Like I got to vote for the Conservatives or whoever was at the time. And I'm like, yes, I would never try and dissuade you. As long as you're making an informed vote based off your best interest, please.
And let's be very big on that section of like, your research, your information, be informed on anything as simple as voting, as more complicated as everything that's going on in the world right now. Don't take every, BuzzFeed quote as gospel. Do your research. And that's, again, another reason why I wanted to have you on is this whole, there needs to be that back and forth. And that's an okay thing. That's a good thing to have back and forth, to learn new things, to get your mind more open. And I agree. And again, when it comes back to politics, as you said, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. The best we can do is be positive about everything and just try to work together just to make life better. Totally. You know what I mean? Like, we're only here for a short time. We're only here for a good time, not a long time. I'm probably gonna have to pay money for that now, but
this is not going to get approved.
It's not going to get approved. But if everyone could just take all that energy and into what could go into something negative or in something hateful and just try to make it positive. There was a small thing that happened in the UK where there was a protest and a Black Lives Matter black guy saved this idiot white guy who was actually protesting against him.
Yes, it was wonderful.
If anything can encapsulate what needs to happen right now, it's that.
I totally agree. Togetherness, like community. This is the conversations that we have face to face. I'm not talking about in the comments. I don't remember the last time someone changed their mind because of a witty reply in Facebook. And I'm taking I need to take my own advice here because I'm like, I'm going to change this guy's mind with facts.
I'm going to fact, and then I'm going to put a winky face at the end emoticon, and that's going to do it.
Yeah, and then he'll just be a changed guy forever. No, I think conversations in real life, community with people that don't look like you, pray like you, talk like you, that's where we learn. That's where we develop empathy. And once you develop empathy, you can expand your world view. Mm-hmm. Like your world view is not the world. And I mean, so for me to sit here and say, yeah, I like Trudeau, I think he's doing a good job. Well, that's my worldview. Mm-hmm. The next guy says, yeah, I own a small business and he made some changes that absolutely screwed me. Right. Well, then that's their worldview. I
understand that worldview.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like my worldview is not the world. Like we have to empathy, humanizing people, conversations.
It's that easy.
It's that easy.
Well, thanks for being here. I'm glad you're doing good. Thanks for sharing your story.
I'm sweating.
I know. Well, I have to turn the furnace off because it's too loud in here.
That's right.
Sorry.
No, I'm sweating because I'm fired up.
Well, that's good. We'll have a part 2 sometime.
Okay, good.
Thanks again for coming. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you all next time.